Have you ever found yourself, chasing a goal, you finally get there, and then, well, still feel that kind of nagging dissatisfaction? Or maybe you're just frustrated by always chasing more and finding the satisfaction, if it even comes, just doesn't last. It's something a lot of us feel, I think, in the modern world. And it really makes you ask, what actually makes us happy? So today we're going to do a deep dive into a really fascinating set of excerpts that come from a source called The Journey of Self-Discovery, and it explores ancient Indian spiritual wisdom. Our mission here is to unpack a pretty radical perspective, actually, on what real success and happiness might mean. It challenges a lot of our modern ideas. We'll look at a very different path to satisfaction and purpose, explained by a spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. This dive should help us understand maybe why the usual ways we seek happiness might leave us feeling a bit empty, and what a truly, let's say, well-informed view of life's purpose could look like for you.
And Srila Prabhupada, the guy we're discussing, he was quite a remarkable figure. Harvey Cox, the professor from Harvard School of Divinity, he actually noted Prabhupada was, quote, 1 in 1,000, maybe 1 in a million. Cox called him pointed proof that one can be a transmitter of truth and still be a vital and singular person. And he really dedicated his life to translating these key Vedic texts, bringing this ancient wisdom to a global audience. That's the material we're drawing on today.
Okay, so let's get right into the central idea, because it really pushes back against our usual way of thinking. This source says, basically, if you're dissatisfied, it's because the ideal life is not a fast-paced, competitive run through a self-serve consumer paradise. We hear so often that striving, consuming, that's the path. How does this text start to dismantle that idea for us?
Well, it immediately suggests looking higher. It talks about a higher measure of success and happiness, one that goes way beyond just gathering stuff. Because as it points out, all else eventually slips away. That feeling after you buy something big or getting that promotion but still feeling,
Right, that fades.
Exactly. So the real achievement, the source argues, the supreme accomplishment, is to improve significantly the one possession that is really ours to keep our consciousness, our sense of identity, our inner self. That's the core shift it's asking us to make.
That's really something to think about, isn't it? We put so much effort into, taking care of the body and bodily comforts. But this wisdom seems to say we're ignoring something more fundamental. It states, the owner of the body, the spirit soul, gets no care. Therefore, everyone is restless. Why do you think we miss this so often?
Well, the source uses a really striking analogy to explain that. It says, you are not the body. You are embodied within the body, but you are not the body. For example, a bird may be within a cage, but the cage is not the bird. Foolish persons take care of the cage, not the bird, and the bird suffers starvation.
Wow. The bird suffers starvation. That paints a clear picture. We're focused on the cage.
Exactly. Preoccupied with the container, neglecting the living being inside. That's the implication.
And it's fascinating how the source connects this spiritual starvation to things we see today. It makes a pretty direct comment about affluent societies, doesn't it?
It does. It observes that even in an opulent country like America, enough food, enough residences, enough material enjoyment, still they're becoming hippies. The young people are not satisfied because of spiritual starvation. So even when material needs seem met, there's this deeper hunger. And this dissatisfaction, the text goes on to explain, is kind of compounded by just the inherent difficulties of living in the material world. It actually categorizes these miseries. There's adhyatmika, suffering from our own body and mind, like illness or anxiety.
Okay.
And adhipattika, suffering caused by other living beings, conflict, insects, whatever. And antidevika, suffering from larger natural forces like floods, drought, things often beyond our control. The source is pretty blunt. This material nature is constituted in such a way that we have to suffer. It is God's law. It suggests suffering is built into the system.
Okay, so if we aren't just this physical body, and chasing material things leads to this cycle of frustration and, well, unavoidable suffering. What are we then? What's our true identity, and where does real happiness come from, according to this wisdom?
Right, that's the crucial next step. And here, the Vedic perspective, as laid out in the source, gives a foundational answer. It states clearly, the human being is essentially a spirit soul, and unlike our body, which is always changing from one form to another, childhood, youth, old age, the spirit soul is existing eternally without changes.
An eternal, unchanging self within the changing body.
Precisely. It suggests something permanent underneath the temporary.
And building on that, the source brings in this idea of superconsciousness. It says, just as we are individual and personal, the superconsciousness is also individual and personal. Oh, that's a really important point, isn't it? We're not talking about some vague energy field, but a supreme person. And the Vedic texts identify this person as Konya. What are the implications of that?
Huge implications. It means ultimate reality isn't impersonal, it's a supreme person we can relate to. The source describes Konya as the supreme personality of Godhead, and even the greatest artist, the source of all beauty and attraction. He's described as eternal, full of knowledge and full of pleasure. This is a Sanskrit term for this. Saksid Ananda Vigrahu.
Saksidananda.
Yeah, Sat means eternal existence, Sit means full knowledge, and Ananda means complete bliss. Vigraho means form. So an eternal form of knowledge and bliss. It's a very complete picture. And the text offers a simple definition of God, too. God has no controller, therefore he is God. Simple but profound.
That idea of Konya as the source of all attraction, all beauty, how does that connect to our own search for love and relationships? The source mentions frustration there, too.
It does. It suggests our frustrations in love often stem from misdirecting our natural loving propensity. We're trying to find ultimate satisfaction in temporary relationships. The key, according to the text, is directing that love toward the supreme person, Konya, who can perfectly and completely reciprocate with everyone. This is the concept of absolute love.
Love directed towards the supreme.
Yes, and this leads to the idea of the spiritual world being the actual original reality. The source says everything in the spiritual world is substantial and original. This material world is only an imitation. It uses the analogy of a cinematographic picture in which we see only the shadow of the real thing.
Like Plato's cave, almost.
Sort of, yeah. This material world is seen as temporary and inherently lacking, whereas the spiritual realm is eternal, blissful, full of light, our real home.
Okay, so the source lays out this whole framework. We're spirit souls, not bodies. There's a supreme person, Konya, and our real home is a spiritual reality. It frames life as a journey of self-discovery and offers a guide to a new way of looking at life. Sounds like there's a practical path offered here. What is it?
Yes, absolutely. The path described is Konya consciousness. It's presented as the way to break free from the cycle of dissatisfaction, suffering, and rebirth, the transmigration from body to body. The ultimate aim is to return to Konya's eternal realm, and the source makes a striking claim. If you simply try to understand Konya, you can go to him at the time of death.
Just understanding Konya. That sounds accessible. And it mentions a specific practice too, right? The meditation system.
It does. It highlights a meditation system renowned for its extraordinary power and the fact that it can be easily practiced almost anywhere and at any time.
It sounds very practical for modern life.
Yeah. Exactly. And the core of this practice is chanting the Hare Konya mantra. The source explains it's not just ordinary sound, it's a transcendental sound vibration that's actually non-different from Konya himself. Chanting it can supposedly immediately carry you to the transcendental platform.
Wow.
And the beauty is its simplicity. The text says you haven't got to change your situation. If you are a student, remain a student. If you are a businessman, remain a businessman. Anyone can chant Hare Konya.
So it's not about dropping out of life, but changing your inner focus.
Precisely. Changing consciousness, not necessarily your job or address.
Now, this sounds like a very personal path, but the source also stresses the need for guidance. It mentions a spiritual master, a guru, being necessary. Why is that emphasized?
Yes, it draws on the example from the Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna accepts Konya as his guru. The idea is that this profound knowledge isn't just theoretical. It needs to be received from someone who embodies it. The source says, one must have full faith in the words of the spiritual master and similar faith in the supreme personality of Godhead for the knowledge to be truly revealed. It points to the importance of an authentic lineage.
Faith in the teacher and the teaching.
Right. And there's a really fascinating story in the text that illustrates the power of this practice, especially in dealing with material desires. It's about Haridesa Uhukara.
Oh, what happened?
Well, he was a devout young man, deeply absorbed in chanting Hare Konya for hours on end. A prostitute was hired to try and distract him, to break his concentration. But even when she approached him directly at night, he remained completely steady, chanting Hare Konya, just asking her to wait until he finished his rounds. He was unaffected.
Incredible. And what happened to her?
She was so impacted by his purity and focus that she actually became his disciple. The source uses this to show how, as it says, Cupid cannot pierce our heart when we are fully absorbed in Konya consciousness. The idea is that when you become genuinely attracted by the beauty of Konya, we will lose our attraction for the false beauty of this material world.
That story really brings it home. It's about shifting your fundamental attraction. not just suppressing desires.
Exactly, a profound internal change.
Okay, so we've explored the personal path, the philosophy. But this source material doesn't stop there, does it? It also takes a critical look at society, at our institutions and philosophies from this spiritual viewpoint.
It really does. It offers some quite sharp critiques. For instance, it questions modern education for often neglecting what it calls God consciousness. It argues that education frequently focuses just on refining the basic animalistic needs: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Elevated versions of those, perhaps, but still centered on the body.
So learning how to eat better, sleep more comfortably, manage relationships, defend ourselves or our nation, but missing the spiritual dimension.
That's the critique. It even challenges the ultimate impact of science, asking what scientist has stopped old age, disease, death, and rebirth? It pushes us to ask if progress is addressing the deepest human problems.
And it also tackles economic ideas like scarcity. What's the perspective there?
It argues against the idea of inherent scarcity, calling it the myth of scarcity. The source asserts the Earth actually produces enough food to easily support its entire population.
So why hunger and poverty?
It points the finger at greed and exploitation, and also unnecessary industrialization, suggesting our systems create the scarcity.
That connects to its views on lifestyle, I imagine.
Absolutely. It strongly advocates for cow protection and generally a simpler, more natural, God-centered lifestyle. And it delivers a very stark warning about the consequences of, well, violence against nature and animals. It says, you are killing innocent cows and other animals, nature will take revenge. Just wait.
That sounds quite dramatic.
It is. It continues. As soon as the time is right, nature will gather all these rascals and slaughter them. Finished. They'll fight amongst themselves, Protestants and Catholics, Russia and America, this one and that one. It's presenting this as a kind of karmic reaction on a societal level.
Wow. That's intense.
It even delves into the meaning of the Sanskrit word for meat, masa. It interprets it as, I am killing this animal. I am eating him. And in my next lifetime, he'll kill me and eat me. A direct karmic link.
Yeah, that's a powerful interpretation. The text also describes the current age, Kali Yuga, in quite specific terms, doesn't it?
Yes, very detailed. It predicts that in this age, qualities like religion, truthfulness, cleanliness, forgiveness, mercy, duration of life, bodily strength, and memory will all decrease.
And he gives examples.
Vivid ones. Like wealth becoming the main indicator of social status, justice being determined by power or influence rather than fairness, marriages based merely on temporary affection or physical attraction, and even superficial things like long hair being seen as a sign of beauty. It paints a picture of declining values.
It really does. Yeah. Now, how does this spiritual framework analyze political systems, like Marxism?
Well, it acknowledges Marx's aim for a classless society, but argues it's ultimately impossible in the material sphere. Why? Because, as the source states, men naturally fall into different classes based on their qualities and work, and fundamentally everyone's mentality is different.
So, material equality is seen as unrealistic.
Unrealistic and unstable if the center isn't spiritual. It critiques using the state as the center, arguing it's imperfect and inevitably leads to new forms of exploitation or dissatisfaction. The text concludes that a truly harmonious, classless society is only possible when Kanya is in the center. It suggests spiritual unity is the only basis for real social unity.
Interesting. And it even touches on psychoanalysis, on Freud.
Briefly, yes.
Yeah.
It suggests that while Freud was trying to resolve inner conflicts, he fundamentally did not know the basic principle of spiritual understanding, which is that we are not this body.
So, because he started from a purely material premise.
His analysis from this perspective was based on a misunderstanding. The source suggests that anxiety isn't just from trauma or repression, but it's inherent as long as one is in the material condition, because the spirit soul is fundamentally out of place.
Like the bird in the cage, feeling restless.
Exactly. And this whole critique section kind of culminates in a formula for peace. It observes how much energy we divert to money-making, but the result is often bad economies and weapons that threaten everything.
The vicious cycle.
Right. And the proposed solution for real peace, it comes when we learn to employ everything in transcendental service for the interest of the Lord, reorienting our collective energy towards a spiritual purpose.
So as we kind of bring this deep dive together, the core message coming through from the journey of self-discovery seems incredibly consistent. It's that real lasting happiness and peace aren't found out there in material adjustments, but in here, in understanding our true spiritual identity and our relationship with the Supreme, with Kunya.
That's it perfectly. And the practical takeaway, as the source puts it so simply, is really quite encouraging. It says, don't give up your business, go on with your business, but simply hear about Konya. It stresses that whatever you do, whatever your profession or situation, you can make your life truly successful by cultivating this knowledge, this consciousness. It's about adding a spiritual dimension, not necessarily subtracting the material activities.
That's a very inclusive message. So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. If our deepest longing is actually for unlimited, eternal happiness, something the material world, by its nature, can't seem to provide, what kind of radical shift in your perspective might unlock that true satisfaction? And what does it really mean to be free if, as this source suggests, constitutionally we're servants? If our nature is to serve, the only real choice isn't whether we serve, but who or what we serve, our temporary senses and desires, or the eternal supreme. Something profound to consider.